Hey y'all, this morning we're gonna do something a little different I've never done before. A guy that I watch that makes some good content on YouTube, Ryan Farms Produce down in Louisiana. I saw him doing this on his tomatoes last year, and so we're gonna, or a similar variation. You see I've still got the water wheel transplanter hooked up behind me. Last season I was watching him right after he transplanted his tomatoes, and his guys were going through with like a gator or a mule, something like that, with a tank on the back, and they were running blocker solution straight into plant holes on the plastic after they planted the tomatoes. And I've been told that Derivo, which is one of the things I use, I'm really getting away from spraying insecticides for the most part on my tomatoes. So pyrethroids have a tendency to flare spider mites, and they don't really have any effect on thrips, and those are two of our biggest problems. I have had severe spider mite issues the past 2 years, and a friend of mine down south of here that raises a bunch of produce, I asked him one time if he ever had any issues with gold flecking and spider mites on his tomatoes, and he said, well, I used to until I cut pyrethroids out of my spray program. And I knew that, I've always known that spider mites would flare, have a tendency to flare if you spray pyrethroids, because pyrethroids are non-discriminate killers. They kill everything except for spider mites, and that includes spider mites predators. So I am moving to an all soil applied insecticide program on my tomatoes. That's the plan for this year. They've already been treated in the greenhouse in the plant trays, and now that they're in the field, we're going to kick it off with Derivo. This is a really solid soil applied insecticide. You can't even spray this. It's not on the label to be sprayed. But I said all that to say Derivo can be run through the drip. I've done that quite a bit. Supposedly Derivo and Blocker both do a better job if they go into transplant water. Well, with a system like what we've got, water wheel transplanter, you don't need to put chemicals in your transplant water, because you've got your hands stuck down in the transplant water as you're planting plants. So what we're going to do, since our tomatoes are already planted, is I'm going to mix up Derivo and Blocker in one of my tanks here on the water wheel, and I'm going to get one of my boys to ride, and we're going to put a shut off on the end of a hose and hook it up to the tank, and we're going to ride the road just like we were planting and run about half a cup of water into each plant hole with Derivo and Blocker right on the root zone, instead of spreading it evenly out through the bed where the roots are not at right now. So get the maximum efficacy, hopefully, out of this. So I'm gonna get this mixed up and get my hose all hooked up and everything, and hopefully my help will be here shortly, and we're gonna get some preventative measures put in the ground. I didn't explain the Blocker. So Blocker is supposed to be the best thing for southern blight. We have got a problem here in certain fields, and it seems to be spreading. I think you can move it around with tillage equipment. It's something that's in the soil, and it's I don't even know the proper term for it, but it's something in the soil that causes southern blight. And southern blight on a tomato or a pepper, usually we see it somewhere around the first or second string of the tomatoes, and by that I mean we've tied them once and tied them again, and they're around knee high, something like that, and they will just collapse like they've been sprayed with Roundup. Sometimes you lose 10%, sometimes you lose 30-40%. It just depends on the weather, and it depends on the amount of inoculum, how about that word, that's in the soil. Blocker is supposed to be the best thing for southern blight as far as preventing it from happening. Once you start seeing it, about the only thing I've been able to do to try to turn it around is spraying a Provia top. It's pretty effective on southern blight, and it might be more effective if you run it through the drip. I'm not sure what the pre-harvest interval is if you run a Provia through the drip. But anyway, we're gonna try to cut it off the pass and get ahead of it by running blocker in the transplant holes and see if that helps us, because in the past we have had some major problems in certain fields. So I'm gonna get this mixed up and we'll get after it. So this is like a lot of things I do, just improvised, kind of the piecemeal. This is a hose I use for filling my air blast sprayer, and I got it backwards from the way a water hose is supposed to work, which worked out perfectly because I've got this old broken water wand, and had to give us a little spout to reach the hole conveniently with and stay away from, keep hands away from the chemicals. The way I'm doing the math on this, I know exactly how many tomatoes go into 1 acre of plastic mulch. And for me, with my spacing, it's 4,320. And I know we're gonna put about, or the goal is we're gonna run about a half a cup of solution into each hole. So with those 2 pieces of information, I can calculate roughly how much chemical I need to use to meet my per acre ounces, or my per acre rate on the chemicals that I need to add to the tank. So that's how I'm coming up with that. If you don't know precisely your plants per acre, you could do it based on rows. I mean, you can do row spacing, pretty simple. How far apart your rows are, how long your rows are, and there's what, like 43,500 square foot in an acre. So this stuff's not all that difficult to calculate up. It can be a little daunting when you're first getting started, but it's really simple if you don't overthink it. So the update is this had too much drain time to keep up with the tractor in first gear, so we had to move the shutoff down to the plant. So this cut off sun drop bottle here is not meant to be a spout, it's meant to be a shield to keep anything from splashing back on his hands when he's operating that shutoff. And it seems to be functioning at tractor speed now. We had precisely the right amount to get through all the tomatoes, and I did the math, checked behind myself afterwards, and there is exactly a half an acre of tomatoes, and that's what we had mixed up for 50 gallons, which is right on point with the label on blocker, because it says to use 100 gallons to the acre and mix whatever amount it was, however many pints to that 100 gallons. So that worked out perfectly. And I had just a few gallons left in the bottom of the tank. I mean, a very few, which worked out really well because I got this row of peppers down through here, planted a lot more densely, and the rate's the same on peppers as it is tomatoes. So what was left in that tank, I drained into I cocked it up on its side and drained it into my solo sprayer. And I did a quadruple rinse on this thing just to be safe, because I have been spraying Roundup and stuff with it. But I took the spray nozzle off, and I'm going to go down through here and run a squirt in every pepper hole. and we should be 100% protected on all this stuff for a while. I'm getting ready to run some of my favorite, I call it a pop-up fertilize. I don't guess since these are transplants, it's actually a pop-up, but it's a Miller product. I'll show it to you here in a minute. It's 12-48-8, real high phosphorus, and I don't spend money if I don't see results, and I've seen some results out of this stuff. When you run this stuff right after transplant, man, it really kicks stuff into gear. But I don't need to run it to all these empty rows, so we're going through now and putting shutoffs in so we can cut off rows that don't have anything planted in them. So I used to use some pressure regulators for my fields, and I got away from them because they on a small field it's okay, but on a bigger field like this one here, they just won't flow enough water, enough gallons per minute to get the job done, and they cut your flow back too much, in my opinion, or your pressure back too much rather. So this is kind of what I went to building myself. So the water comes in here. This is my pressure regulator. Got a little pressure gauge on here, like 10 bucks at the hardware store, and then 2 shutoffs, so I can run the strawberry field or I can run this tomato field back here behind me. And my ground is so unlevel that I have found that I get better water distribution if I'll push the limits of the drip tape a little bit. I use Toro Aquatrax. Been using it for several years. I've gotten better service out of it than I have out of some of the others. I've used Netafim, I've used the ribless T-tape, I've used chafing tape, and so far the best one I've found has been this Toro Aquatrax that I'm using. It seems to be more resistant to the edges getting cut, because it's not really completely flat like T-tape is. Looks like it's been ironed when it comes off the roll, and those sharp corners tend to get cut in my experience, or nicked or whatever, and cause leaks. Anyway, that's what I use, what I like. In my experience, it will stand 20 pounds pressure. It'll probably stand a little more than that, but I don't like to push my luck any more than that. And so 20 pounds is what I try to run to the field. And my ground is unlevel enough to where if you're running like 10 pounds of pressure, your low places will get real wet and your high places won't. So if you bump that pressure on up, it seems to force enough water through there that it kind of makes it be pressure regulating. And yes, I am aware that they sell pressure regulating drip tape, but I'm also aware that pressure regulating drip tape's about, the last time I bought it, about 50 bucks a roll more expensive. And particularly now with labor and inputs as high as they are, you've got to save money everywhere you can. So that's just the way I do it. Not the gospel, not the only way to do it, but that's how I do it. Unfortunately, we installed all the fittings that we had, the shutoffs for the rows on the tomato field, but it was not enough to complete the job. So we're running a little short there. But as I promised, I would show you the stuff that I use for pop-up. This is what I use on strawberries and tomatoes. Those are really the only things that I use it on, because it is kind of pricey. I can't remember exactly what this cost, but it just, I mean, every little cost adds up. So on stuff that are not super high value crops, I don't use it. but on tomatoes and strawberries I do. It's Miller Sawyer Grow 1248-8 plus micros. Comes in 25-pound bag. I run 25 pounds of this to the acre on tomatoes and strawberries as soon as I plant them, almost always. And obviously I won't run it today because I don't have enough shutoffs, and I don't want to run it to the whole field that part of it has nothing in it. So, but that's what I use, what I run through the irrigation system as soon as I get a crop of tomatoes or strawberries in the ground. So I think I'm gonna wrap this particular video up right here. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Y'all stay tuned. We got a whole bunch coming. We have got a lot to do, and I'm trying to film just as much of it as I possibly can. Got sweet corn plant, green beans, peas, okra, and we got a bunch of plastic to lay. I'm gonna film that, break out the PostPlanter Junior and plant a bunch of cucumbers, and then we'll hand plant a bunch of squash, and go through and set cantaloupes, and the list just keeps growing and don't shrink. So y'all stay tuned, and I'll get as much of it out there for you as I can. I appreciate y'all watching as always. If you hadn't, hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. I'm trying to grow the channel, and I was looking at my analytics the other day, and about 75% of the people watching are not subscribed. So go ahead and hit that button if you would. I'd appreciate it. I'll see y'all next time.